Thank you for joining the PHLpreK Year-End Review Training for FY 2022. I'm Carrie Lee, the Contracts Manager for the PHLpreK Intermediary. Today, we're going to be doing an overview of year-end reporting. We'll do a demo of the budget versus actual template, and then we'll talk about next steps. So an overview of the year-end reporting. So PHMC collects end-of-year expense reports for all providers with $299,000 or less in FY 22 annual PHLpreK revenue. That's not then those providers that are not selected for the 10% desk review. A year-end review of expenditures includes reviewing and collecting supporting documentation and records to ensure invoices, budget projections, and actual expenditures align. The period of review is January 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. What you'll need to complete the year-end review, you're going to have to complete the budget versus actual expense report template. Make sure you're completing the right template. There's one for centers and one for families. So how you can tell is right at the top of, you'll see this Excel spreadsheet. It says center or it will say families. You'll also need your FY 22 PHLpreK budget amount. You can find this on your PHLpreK contract. Right here, you'll see in section 3, here's an example here. You're also going to want to include any amendments if you receive those through the year. You'll also need your general ledger to complete all the tabs in the budget versus actuals expense report. So what you're going to do for the budget versus actual template is you're going to complete the summary tab and then all the individual tabs in the Excel sheet. You shouldn't enter anything where there's yellow highlighting. Those cells will auto-populate from the tabs. And if your variance is over or under 10%, you're going to provide a justification. And we hope that you're specific. Some good examples are like the landlord raised your rent, or if you're under enrolled for the year, so not all funds were expended. A bad example is just being vague and saying it's related to COVID. For that summary tab on the template, you're going to enter your site name, your total budget amount, number of PHLpreK slots, your approved annual budget line items, and then comment on the variance that's 10% over or under. And when you're completing the individual tabs, you'll see these columns. So one column will ask you for the total paid from July through June. In that column, you're gonna enter the total amount you paid an employee or a vendor in that program year. The next column will be the percent charged to PHLpreK. So you're gonna determine what percentage the employee worked for PHLpreK or the percentage of the expenditure to charge to PHLpreK. And then that last column will auto-calculate the total PHLpreK amount based on those two previous columns. It's also going to ask you for the allocation method. So each tab has a space at the top to indicate how much of the total cost incurred should be applied to PHLpreK. You're going to provide an explanation on how you calculated your allocation. And examples of that could be based on the percentage of children served, or maybe the square footage, or anything else. So an example of that could be example of how you might calculate based on percentage of children. If you have a classroom with a teacher with a total of 20 children, 10 are PHLpreK children and 10 are non-PHLpreK children, and that teacher is paid $1,000 per month. If your basis for allocation is percentage of children, PHLpreK is charged 50% of the teacher's salary because 10% of that 20 total children are PHLpreK children. So you charge half of the teacher's salary. Now let's get into the budget versus actual template. I'll bring it up here. So as you can see on the top, the one for family providers is going to say FCCH at the top. That's how you know it's the family provider template. You'll type in your child care center name, ABC Childcare. We'll use as an example the contract year FY 22. the date of submission. I'll put today's date. And then you're going to put that total budget amount at the top. Let's say I have, and you also put the number of PHLpreK slots. So let's say I have 3 children, 3 slots, and then that would equal 26,250 was my budget, PHLpreK budget amount. So I've had those line items completed at the top. Next, you're going to complete columns B on this tab, and then comment on any variance here on this column H. These columns in the middle, C through G, are going to auto-populate based on your budget amount and information you enter into the tabs. So first, let's start out with an example. Let's start off with my approved. I had approved budget amount related to program salaries of, I estimated that charge would be $10,000. So then I would go into the program related salaries tab. It asks for the name of the staff member. I'll put Mary Smith in, owner, lead teacher. Access the owner and lead teacher. And then I'm going to add in the total salary paid from July through June, and then the total salary paid from January to June. So that would be maybe 20,000 here, and then another 20,000 here. So then I'm going to figure out the total percentage charged to PHLpreK. So if I had, I have those 3 PHLpreK slots, maybe I have a total amount of children of 6 in that classroom. So I will have 50% I'm charging to PHLpreK. So you see that 10% or $10,000 auto calculates here. And then as the basis for allocation on the top, I'm going to add percentage of children. Okay, then I'm going to go back to my budget versus actual summary page. And you'll see it's all filled in here. I filled in this first amount, and then all of these columns auto-populated based on what I added into the individual tabs. And you'll see the variance here is 0. So it's not over or under 10%. So I don't need to add any comment on there because there isn't any variance. Let's try a different one tab. Let's enter program related supplies used for program purposes. Maybe I'll add $1,000 here. You'll see it auto populates. This is tab, we're looking for number 2. So we go on the bottom right here. I'll find program related supplies, the corresponding tab. I will write in a vendor, maybe that's WB Mason. The charge is arts and craft supplies. And then maybe the total amount I paid here was $1,500. The percentage I'm charging, there's still half the children are PHLpreK children, so I still want to use that same allocation method. So that's 50%. And you'll see that auto calculates there. I want to put the basis for allocation again is the percentage of children at the top. So that completes this tab, and then I'll go back to the budget versus actuals to make sure it looks right. So you'll see here, the variance is 25%. So it's over 10 or over or under 10%. So I'm going to need a justification here. So maybe it is underneath my original amount because I was under enrolled for part of the year. So under enrolled for maybe September through January is my justification for why those funds weren't expended. So you're going to complete all of the tabs at the bottom. Make sure you scroll over far enough using these little arrows at the bottom so you can scroll over and see more tabs. And then if you want to, then you're going to want to make sure, so you have your total budget amount up top here. You're going to make sure it matches up to this total budget amount of all line items on the bottom. So it's really important that those two match before you complete your template. And then you want to make sure you sign and date the template, make sure there are no blanks. So if there wasn't any, if you didn't originally estimate any budget line item, make sure you're putting a 0 to note that you didn't have any line items there. Okay. So now we'll just go back to, and we'll talk about next steps. So it's really important to get started now. You want to download that template and start filling out those tabs. If you need assistance, you can contact Spark at 1-844-QSC-PHIL or info@sparkphillyprek.com. You're going to submit when you're finished with your budget versus actuals expense report, you're going to submit it to PHLpreK at phmc.org. And the due date for that is August 31st, 2022. After we receive it, it'll be forwarded to your provider service specialist, and they'll conduct any follow-up if needed. But make sure, please get started right away. And reach out if you have any questions. If you do have any basic questions, you can also email the PHLpreK inbox as well. Thank you. Thanks for joining.